Thank you so much for coming, all of you. It's my immense pleasure to announce you the first talk of today, of this afternoon. I wanted to, we're calling the person I want to thank actually. She's on her way. I want to thank the Galerie Martel, Rina in particular, for making it possible for us to have the huge pleasure of welcoming Emil Ferris here. I'm sure you all know her work, so we're extremely happy to be able to have Daria de Beauvais from the Palais de Tokyo, Chief Curator at the Palais de Tokyo, to moderate a chat between Emil and between Lina and Gaëlle, Hippolyte and Lina Hentgen, two French artists who you know, obviously represented by Semio's gallery. So thank you so much, all of you, for being here. This is really a cross-referencing between graphic novelism, between cartoonism, and between contemporary drawing, and I'm sure it's going to be a delightful talk. So thank you so much, and without further ado, I'll just pass the mic to Daria.
Thank you, Joanna, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm sorry we don't have enough chairs, apparently. And a little note before we start to say that Gaëlle, unfortunately, has lost her voice, so she won't say much. So just to let you know, it's not because she has nothing to say, it's just that her voice has left her for a few days, but we'll give another talk, hopefully. Before talking about what you do, I would like to ask you some questions about who you are, and on the way we were discussing with Emil, the fact that you both have men's names, and I felt it was like a Trojan horse to get into the world in general and the art world in particular. Maybe Emil, you want to start about this?
Well, my mother gave me this name because she said, if you send something off, she is a visual artist, a painter, and she said, if you send something off, you'll stand a chance of getting it reviewed or seen if you have a man's name. Which she told me when I was very young, and that was something that really made me sad. But, of course, since then, I've had a child, and I've realized that women make men, and they make women, and we have the right to take any name we want because we make everyone. So every name belongs to us, so there you go.
Do you want to explain the history of your name, Hippolyte Hentgen?
Yes, Hippolyte Hentgen is a nickname made of two last names. So Gaëlle Hippolyte, and Hippolyte, you're French, so you know it's a first name in French. But and then my name is Lina Hentgen. So when we put them together, it's the name of a man, and we thought it was a good idea to begin this with this AK nickname.
So with Emil and Hippolyte, maybe so the theme of this talk is the female monster, which is a very exciting title, I think. And first idea that Joanna told me when she imagined this talk was to talk about the female body, which is traditionally shown in art as an object. And in your practice, you become the subject. And maybe we can discuss a little bit about how women represent women artists in their art.
That's a fantastic question. It's something I still think about all the time, especially because so much of what I do is looking at traditional, I think quite beautiful presentations of women in art. And I'm a woman looking at women being presented. And I'm also finding them extremely inspiring and beautiful, the creatures that I see, because you're absolutely right. They become monstrous. But this leads me to the realization, and I arrived at this realization as a child, and have only become more aware of it, that we're all monsters, and that if we are objectifying anyone, there's a reason why. And there's anxiety, there's a fear that's part of creating this objectification. But there's also this power that comes, that you realize is part of this tradition. And so these are really interesting questions. I don't think that says everything. No.
It's just a beginning.
That's right.
And maybe you could talk a little bit about a previous series of yours that we are partly showing in the diaporama, a series inspired by pin-ups, so a very sexy iconography, but that you transform in a very cold sexiness.
Yes, we try to embody these figures coming from pinups, which are drawings made by men representing women for historically for GIs, and they were like posters the GIs put in their office or whatever when they were on war time. So we try to we just realized that this kind of women, the pinup, were like monsters also, because they don't have natural anatomy, but they have long legs and special torsade.
Curves, maybe?
Yeah, curves, which are something only imagined for drawing. So we just try to draw them a little bit like, sorry. So there are drawings made by airbrush, which is a technique for automobile.
Airbrush is used to paint cars.
So it's a technique which you never put your hand. There is no traces of your body doing those kind of drawings, and then we put masks as if they were monsters. I don't know if I said everything, but it's in fact the main idea.
Yes, the object of desire is kind of rebelling against this, yeah, and becoming the more active character.
Yes, that's it.
Gosh, I want to thank you for speaking English, and I'm sorry, but this is so wonderful. It's the first time I've done a panel where I understood everything that was happening, and maybe even in the United States, truthfully. But anyway, but I appreciate it so much. Thank you, and I love that what you just said about the not touching it. That's so interesting.
Yeah, that's why that's not so sexy, in fact, and there are drawings made by someone. Sometimes we know the name of the author of this kind of pinup, like F. Green or a drawer like this, but they are reproduced, so they are becoming new picture, like cold picture, and so we try to give them a new body, drawing them as if they were pictures, and with the airbrush. And there are thin lines. We just try to ouais, on essaie juste de les réincarner, ces pin-up, par les petites lignes qui viennent sous-tendre les courbes du mollet ou des bras, ou des petits endroits où les lignes se glissent en fait.
So to reincarnate these pin-ups, they use thin lines, these lines that will be used to put the curve of the knee or the leg, and very, subtle lines, but that gives the body its whole, carnality. And about carnality and techniques, maybe I have a question for you, Emil, because you're talking about using hairbrush as a way to put, you know, a distance between this very sexy body and you as a woman artist. But the gesture is very present and important in your drawings. This famous big pen that you're using, and its limited set of color, and we really see, and it's something Lina and Galette have told me about your work, that they feel, they see the movement of your hand, and that it was very apparent, and it gives a kind of the curves of the women's body, and this gesture was giving them a lot of humanity and presence on the paper.
That's great. Thank you for saying that. When I was a kid, I didn't walk until I was almost 3 years old, and so because I had scoliosis and my feet didn't grow; they stayed really, really small, which is weird, but that's what happened. And so I couldn't walk to things that I wanted to touch. I couldn't go up to a table and take some, like 2-year-olds, just they're incredibly difficult that way, right? Because they want to do everything. And I didn't. I did it with drawing. So I would see something that I was interested in and I would draw it. And when I drew it, I remember as a kid, because I couldn't touch it, I couldn't put my little hands on it, I would touch it in my head with the pen. And I would just keep touching it in my head. And the fusion between drawing it and stroking it, it became this feeling, this sensation. And I think that might be in the drawings. So, like all of the difficult and terrible things we go through, there's this way that something really good comes out of the darkness.
Darkness, it's a good keyword to continue the discussion. And maybe in terms of influence, because both, I know, you're interested in horror movies and the golden age of the horror movies, the Hammer films, and also the B-series, the very terrible horror movies, but that speak really about society. Maybe you want to speak about this influence on your work.
Yeah, the first thing we like in horror movies, it's the fact that they are made in a... they are a little bit out of the industry of cinema, so they have not so much money, so they have to make some bricolage to build bodies or to build this kind of monster. And this was the first attraction for us, this kind of bricolage, or this idea of a body made of several parts.
Yes, and I'm sorry. That's the same for the we listen to music at the fringe of art, between outside practice and mainstream culture, pop culture. So horror movie and noise music and cartoonist like Tijuana Bibles. I don't know if you know that, but something at the fringe and a political new images or new kind of sound.
So yes, we are really interested on every culture that is a little bit at the border.
At the margin.
At the margin, the leftovers, if you a little bit like that. So horror movie is a little bit like that.
And you were saying previously, I read that in interviews, that your interest in horror movies is because for you they're a filter to speak about society and politics in general.
Yeah, definitely. I was growing up during the 60s, and as a kid, you'd come out of the house and you'd go to get on the subway, and you'd see people getting off the subway coming from protests, and their faces are covered in blood. And there you are. I mean, this is the horror you're actually living with, but, things were on fire. The city was on fire. And then you see the horror movie. And, you know, Frankenstein is in the windmill, you know, and they've set it on fire, and it's all right there. This is what I'm living with. And immediately I recognized that horror movies were talking. I felt they were talking directly to me, which is ridiculous. But, you know, I really felt like I had to find out what the next message was going to be.
And so because it's true that especially in the 80s, some famous horror movies were seen as metaphors, like the zombie movies. The Night of the Living Dead is about this one black man who basically saves as much people as he can save during the course of a night, and when morning arrives, the cops arrive finally and shoot him because he's the only black man in that suspect.
Can I tell you that this actually happened, exactly this happened 2 months ago in Chicago, just outside of Chicago? That, I don't know if you know about this as a part of the news or anything, but there had been some gunman that came into a place and a black man stopped him, contained him. I think he had already killed 1 or 2 people, and the cops came in and shot him. It's still here. It hasn't changed. This is what we're still dealing with. That director was telling us the truth. And so often, like Jordan Peele does, who wrote, you know, who made the movies that he's made, and I think you may have seen them, the truth is still being told. And unfortunately, it's now being told through science fiction and horror.
And to go back to this idea of the female monster, you were telling me that what you liked in some horror movies, not all of them, but for instance in Carpenter or Dario Argento, that women were strong characters. So maybe we can speak about that, about women not being the victims, but being the strong ones.
Yes, actually, in some John Carpenter is all the main characters actually are Kurt Russell, which is a kind of cowboy, but sometimes you have female heroine, and they are the one on which the bad guy focuses, but they are like really strong and they fight to survive. And I think, in a way, they are not only victims, the women. Je le dis pas bien.
J'irai pas plus loin. Like Ridley, right? Are you thinking of like an Alien? Or
Alien, sure, yeah. But also, we were talking about Giallo's movie, and in fact, yes, they are the one who are decapitated or the one who are desired, but there are some women like in Phenomena, and the witches are the strong lady, in fact.
I'm all for that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Have you seen Dario Argento's movies as well?
Which one?
Dario Argento?
Yeah, Suspiria.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
for instance.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. That was really inspiring to me. I loved it. Yeah.
Very gothic. And maybe we could go back to the woman's body, because both your practice of course, are influenced by art history, and you can recognize sometimes very easily these influences because you really, play with it. It's something we see in your drawings. It's something we see in your graphic novel. So maybe we can start with you, Emil, talking about all these paintings from a lot. The Art Institute in Chicago, are part of the story in your book and become real characters.
Yeah, I as a kid, I would go in and I would think, I want to talk to you. I mean, I would, there was this beautiful Judith, and she's very solid. She's like so solid, and she's holding the head of Holofernes, and she's got a sword. She's just cut a guy's head off. I just want to talk to her so much. I want to say, okay, so how did you pull this off? And how are you doing right now? Because you're totally naked, and that can't be too comfortable. But at the same time, you just saved everybody. You're such a badass. And I as a kid, I just would imagine that conversation. And so the book you know, and I would write in my notebooks, I would imagine some of these things. But now, as, you know, I'm really going into that world and allowing myself to see these women, so frequently the women that I identified with in the paintings were really heroic figures or powerful figures. You know, they were the Medici woman. You know, they were Catherine the Great. They were Judith. You know, I'm thinking about even the saints had this otherworldly experience. I mean, you know, I didn't like it that Lucia, you know, her eyes, they're right there, you know, but she's also got them here. It was so weird. It's like, not only are they there, but she somehow kept them. Like, I want to ask her, how did you do that? How did they pull your eyes out, but you still have your eyes? I mean, this is like crazy. But so, I mean, there were all these questions I had for the paintings, and usually they were women who I wanted to ask these questions of, because I was trying to figure out, well, how can one be a woman in a world where whatever you say or do as a woman is really not considered all that important by everyone? How did you do it? You know, so.
And do you want to talk a little bit about how you dialogue with, you know, art history and previous movements or particular artists that really like fuse your work? I can ask another question if you prefer.
No, we can maybe tell a word about the roots of our drawings, which are coming from cartoons, in fact. So this is a special way to draw, which is these are drawings made for industry also. Many people draw the same Mickey or the same Donald Duck. So we try to do a little bit like that in the studio, trying to copy this very strange line coming from the cartoon industry. And this is the ability we have to copy those lines, Gail and I. So this was the first step for us to work in a duo and to make this drawing practice, which is not really easy when you're two. And we both draw on the same paper, and we... Je sais plus où je voulais aller, mais yeah.
But then maybe we can go to another question about your practice. So how do one do a drawing with four hands?
Yeah. So it's the two waves maybe, but the one is really classical. We draw on the same page if it's possible. So it's a kind of big landscape on which we just give and the other way, it's also quite simple. We work in the studio in a way really intuitive, and so many pictures came like this because Gail saw artists she loves, I saw other stuff I love, and then it's a kind of mix in the studio. And when we see that someone is good, we just talk and we try to describe what happened in the picture, and we have a kind of method to which appear, and then we can draw a series. And there is maybe another way, which is like a game. Gail draws something first, and then she tell me, "Oh, go further in the story." And then we have many drawings like this, like 10 or 15 in the studio, and we go like one by one on the drawings.
Yes, the goal is the surprise. When I draw something, I know the beginning, and when I stop, there is no surprise. But working together is always like an exercise for the imagination, and that's the goal, to be creative and to be surprised at the same time.
So you don't have four hands yet, but the way you draw I think is amazing. Do you want to speak a little bit about your techniques? How you draw, how you dialogue with the page, with your pencil? Is it long hours of drawing? Is it, you know, short moments? How do you draw?
I don't know. I don't know. I just don't stop. I probably, I don't know. You know, it's really weird. And I'm going to say this to you because maybe you're a person who drew when you were a kid and you haven't drawn in a long time, and maybe you want to draw again. But I'm going to tell you something. I kind of hate drawing until I start drawing, and then I think, why wasn't I drawing 15 minutes ago? And I hate it. Like, I'm really bored with it. And then I love it so much. And then I hate it, like 4 hours into it. Like, because I got to do another D's. And this time his eyes have to go up. Or, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, good, I get to draw him again. But then I say, oh, no, I love this. And there's just this way that, I don't know, it's like a relationship with a person where you sometimes kind of hate them. And then you realize that you could never live without them. And you love them so, so much. And then you think about killing them. You know what I mean? But it's everything I've ever done. I've never known anything else. I've never known any other way to be, you know, other than to draw. So, yeah. That didn't answer any questions about technique, did it? Technique.
But you don't have to answer my questions.
Okay. Really? Oh, that feels.
I mean,
good.
you can try, but
okay.
you can say whatever you want.
I like how you say you can try, but you will never do it.
I think you're right about the fact that we draw every day, and sometimes we just have to make a big stop. So that's why sometimes we try to think about drawings in the space, or like cartoons, really drawing like films. But yeah, drawings is here from the morning till the end of the day, and since a long time ago, and it's a long, long time to practice, to exercise, and to try many ways to draw also.
Can I say something? You mentioned Tijuana Bibles.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that my father kind of fell out of the mafia and fell into art was that he was caught drawing porn in high school, and was almost thrown out, but wasn't thrown out. The art teacher saw it and said, this kid has talent. Well, he used to do this thing when he hated drawing because he had to draw for a life. He would draw big dicks. And I just find that if you draw erotic stuff, like in the middle of having to draw stuff you really don't want to draw, big dicks, or whatever it is that you want to draw, something sexy and fun. And for me, it's monsters, maybe with big dicks, maybe not, just maybe, I don't know, whatever. It just sort of like frees you up because you're laughing again. And I just think that, I don't know if you do that. Do you do that? Do you have some way of laughing again in the middle of a big project?
Every time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I don't feel alone. So, like, is it big dicks or something else?
Whatever. Sometimes it's just like a flappy man with just his butt, white butt. I don't know.
Oh, it's white butts for you. I like that. I would love to see an exhibition of white butts, you know? I really would.
In fact, there is a kind of code for comics, which is French, BD Franco-Belge, and which means Franco-Belge means there are characters with big nose. In States, you have the big feet, like Crumb, or it's something coming from the beginning of the cartoon at the end of the 90s. But in Europe, we have the big nose. So we have many series of drawings with pin-up doing like sadomasochist action with big nose, like and the difference between the two representation give this kind of humor, and we always try to laugh at ourselves also, because there are many drawings with us in the studio with the flesh, arrows with we are naked with arrows in the butt and trying to draw and big nose like this. Yeah.
Yes, when I've shown your book to Emil, and there was a self-portrait of you in this kind of action, and Emil was, is it them? And I said yes, and I love it.
I did. I really do. Yeah.
You were talking about Frankenstein, and it's also something we mentioned about your work, that your works are like Frankenstein drawings. You know, they are assemblage, and even if your most recent series that you can see upstairs in the fair at Galerie Semuse, it's you're doing collage with found drawings and cut images. Maybe you can talk a little bit about this way of working as well.
Yeah, collages appear many years ago. In fact, they came from drawings, but we just try to understand how something that is not handmade, like photography or a document or drawings made by someone else, and then we cut, and we try to understand how we can use those lines or those pictures which are not us, and how it can be mixed with our own drawings. So the series which you can see upstairs are made with old magazines and drawings we found in the flea market in Japan, which are made by kids, in fact. So and we just try to understand how one line of a figure can be prolongé. In another part of a photography, and then we try to we choose the different documents for their quality of reproduction, because all paper have this kind of black stuff which is not actually current use anymore.
Yes, and it's the way to make reappear the phantoms of the ghost, the ghost of all the production made by children and amateur practice by every people that draw. In fact, babies and crazy men and everybody. In fact.
And do you feel that your work sometimes... Hello? Yes. Is a way of doing an assemblage? How you draw, you know, your influences, and how do you organize your images? Because sometimes it has a kind of patchwork effect almost.
Definitely. It's like a Frankenstein monster. It's every page has its own requirements. And because each page has its own, or usually two pages put together, there's something I want to do there, and I might not find it in, you know, a panel format. So I, you know, kind of throw that out the window, and I look for a way to make each two pages have some symmetry and have some, you know, speak to each other and tell a story that's kind of beyond the image, but also beyond the words. So, you know, there is this way you start piecing things together, and then you find your way. You know, you look at something and you realize that it's speaking to something else, and then that makes you think about the story. And so there's this really interesting way that, you know, people say, oh, did you write the whole story? No. Did you draw all the pictures? No. They talk to each other, you know, and I think they change each other. And that's really when it gets exciting. When it gets exciting, you know, like I drew Anka's mole right here, and it's between her nose and her mouth. So I looked at it one day and I said, oh, there's a story behind that. I know there is. It just so happens it's a story that's in my family. But I didn't know that until I saw that mole. It's like that, you know, and so then you collage that in. You draw in the collaging of the words, but also the collaging of the images. It's a kind of a organic thing, and that's when it's fun. That's when you don't hate it, when it surprises you, right? Like you kind of like love your mate when they surprise you in a good way. It's kind of like that. Yeah, it does that.
Are you often surprised by your own work?
I hope every time also. This is the main key of the duo. It's we draw together, so we have to be surprised from each other. And if a surprise is revealing to us, so the drawing is good.
I love that because I feel that too. I feel like, and when I saw your work, I felt that energy. of discovery in your work, and I love that. And I thought, yeah, that's... We talked just before we got out here, and we said, both of us said the same thing. If I see somebody and I want to go draw right after I see their work, then I know that's work I love. So, yeah, and I did that.
So, I'm sorry to keep you here instead of drawing.
Forgive you.
Thank you. So maybe coming back to the link between your work and society, and we discussed about how drawings could and horror movies could speak about what's happening in the world. I feel that artists, their work is like a mirror of society, and we don't always like what we see there. And you said once that someone was telling you about your work and how gothic it looked, and you answered, well, the USA haunted house.
Right. I mean, and you mentioned the haunted quality, and I don't know how old I was, but I realized that in the story of the haunting in the United States, and I'm not sure what it's like here, you have this moment when you realize the house was built on an Indian burial ground. I mean, this is like the thing, right? Or the house, in the case of The Haunting of Hill House, the original book, you realize that it was a capitalist who had been very dismissive of the lives of his workers, and he killed a lot of people building his beautiful house. Oh, this is the history of the United States of America. This haunted house we're living in is, oh. And then all of a sudden, you realize that this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a haunted house. And so there's a page in the book that, Franklin is not being treated particularly well. And the thing you see is you see a haunted house and you see a rope hanging from a tree. And, I'm talking about our history of lynching people. Our history of incredible abuse that we seem to be unable to face. And it's not gone away. And we have to talk about it, but we find it very difficult. So I want that to be part of the discussion. It has to be. We can't get better. We can't recover until we talk about it.
And your drawings are maybe facing less obviously political themes, but something that I feel is really present in most of your works is, this figure of the feminine monster, this figure of women artists that either, are already part of official art history, such as Louise Bourgeois or Eva Hesse or Jade Feo, which work we discussed. But then there are all the others that haunt, the art history. So how do you welcome all these ghosts in your drawings?
We try to convoke to call all those female artists which are sometimes left in the margin. We made a series of performances called Portraits, which are often portraits of women, like poets or Pagou. And then we always try to build new series of drawings thinking about female artists. And there is one, there are many female artists coming from the Chicago Imagists, like Christina Romberg or I'm sorry, or the names. And so this was a special movement, very balanced between men and women. And I think this is maybe only one. This is the only one example in art history which men are also as represented as female artists. I'm sorry.
At the beginning. when we choose to call her Hippolyte Hentgen, it was like a joke, but at the beginning, people ask us if the collaboration is because two women is be able to be one man artist, and very often this joke is there is something true in that joke, so it's a little bit sad, but we try to make some pieces with women and to make performance with great artists. And in artistry, there is no enough place for women artists. No, you don't understand that? Yeah.
In artistry, there is not enough?
There is no place for women artists. But it's changing.
Yes, I hope.
Because you were speaking previously of all these strong characters in paintings you were seeing at the Art Institute in Chicago. But all these characters, like Judith or Salome or all these other Medici, or, they were considered as, outsiders. They were the bad ones. So only the bad ones could have, a real role, a real action.
Well, I think coming from Chicago, that's okay, right? Like you know what I mean? Like, we're okay with that. And so I can kind of understand, like when you're talking about the Harry Who, I can kind of, it fits. It fits that you would have that. Maybe I'm just advertising Chicago. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not even sure what the question was exactly in terms of like, I'm probably not answering it. I went somewhere else.
No, I was just because we were talking about these, figures who are not yet in the official picture. But you were saying you were fascinated by these figures in painting, the ones where, active. But the active ones in this history of painting were the bad ones, the one who were, sinners. So that's interesting that to be an actress of your own life, you had to be a sinner.
I think monsters teach you that too, though. There is that intersection where the monsters are supposedly the bad ones, but would you want to be anyone else in the monster movie? I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, is there any other choice than being one of the monsters, right? I mean, like, everybody else is so boring. I mean, it's so dumb and so boring and so narrow. The monster's the only cool guy, right? And so you accept that, and that's cool. And the only thing is, getting killed or getting, burnt at the stake in the case of the witch or whatever. We're here to change that. Yeah, and I think we have to. Because what if the monster is really our perception of the earth? What if what we're afraid of is the forest? What if what we're afraid of is the ocean? What if what we're afraid of is the actual earth? And what if we're at a time right now when we have to remember the monsters because we depend upon them? We depend upon what we're supposedly afraid of. It keeps us alive. It's unknown. It's powerful. It's scary. It's very female. It's the mother that we come from. I mean, the Gnostics say that this planet, they tell us, this planet was once a goddess who decided, because she loved her children so much, to become a planet so that she could support her children, so that she could embrace them. What if we have to remember all of these things in order to survive?
It's hard to speak after that. Maybe to go back to humor, which is something that is present in your work, and the idea of changing the point of view, because your graphic novel, My Favorite Thing is Monsters, is supposedly drawn and written by a 10-year-old girl. So what does it change to inhabit, the head of a 10-year-old girl to draw this world?
What doesn't change?
No, your graphic novel is seen from the point of view of a 10-year-old girl, Karen. She's a heroine, and everything what's happening is happening through her mind. So how do you do that?
Well, I mean, I think she's in me. She's me, and she's in me. And I mean, there's other people in me too. That's gross, but they're there too. Anyway, but she's there, and I kind of talk to her, when I'm doing it, and she says no to things a lot, like, I'm not going to do that for you. And I say, oh, come on, and we do it, and anyway, a lot of the time. How does it feel? It feels kind of freeing. It feels kind of exciting. It feels very vulnerable. A lot of times I'm saying things that I don't want to say, because I'm going to be the guy that said it, and you're going to be here at some point asking me about the thing I said that I wish I wish I could just go down into the earth and just coil down into the earth, because I'm a little bit embarrassed about it. More so in the second book. So there's there's a pitch for the second book. But yeah.
And playfulness is also something important in your work. So how do you call that in your drawings?
The assemblage is a kind of game. It's a little bit like when you're a kid and you have to put a cube under a cube, etc., etc. So when we draw, it's a little bit like this. We put a brick, and then she gave another brick, and then another brick, and then the wall is built. And so this is a playground work, and then we have the power to go from a drawing, then to an installation, then to a film, then to a performance. But everything is linked by this kind of game we just try to write. And I was just thinking about one action in your book when Karen is meeting hippies, and she do the square thing, and the hippie told her that she's really squared, and she says, yes, I love square, I love triangle, and I love circle. And that's exactly how we draw, using circle, triangle, and square, and then we play with these shapes to build monster at the end.
I love that you mentioned that, because I realized the question was kind of about playfulness, and I totally went somewhere else. But sometimes I'm writing the book, and I'm literally laughing so hard, because I remember myself doing something that is so stupid and embarrassing, and I'm just red in the face thinking about the thing, and I think, well, I gotta put that in. There's no way, because I know other people will laugh with me, because it's human. It's across the board. We've all. I mean, do you ever sit up at night and remember something you did in 3rd grade that was so embarrassing? And to this day, your face can get red when you think about it. And you might be 56 years old and you're still laying in bed going, I can't believe I did that. But it's so funny, and you have to have that joy of, and
I remember one time, I don't know if I can tell that, but we had an exhibition in Germany, and we drew drawings for this gallery, and then we drew roots for the German gallery. I'm sorry, this is really a bad joke, but this is. I want to hear it so bad. Yeah, sometimes we're like this kind of growth also. Yeah. Mm.
But the story between Lina and I is really founded on the studio is a crucial place, and in this studio, the studio is a place full of joy and dancing, and there is music and a lot of pleasure, and this is the center of the activity. So
it's beautiful.
The studio is Hippolyte Hentgen, and the studio is the 3rd character. He is the monster.
I love that. That's my studio mate. We share a studio, and there's a lot of dancing and a lot of joy, and also a lot of bad podcasts that we laugh at, and I don't know. And Yeah.
I don't know, but we spend so much time in the studio. We can draw for 17 hours long, and then we are crying. We have ink in the nose, and we say, "Wow."
Ink in the nose.
Yeah.
I know
Because
what
of the
ink. I
airbrush.
know. Oh, yeah, ink in the nose. I
And
get
then you
that.
go in the underground, and you are like like zombie, in fact, and
Right.
everybody's looking at you like this. You have the yellow stuff.
Well, I do a lot of like, how bad is it? Yeah, how bad am I? Can I go out, or is it going to be really bad? Do I have to sit in that table way far away from everybody? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so you are the monsters, really.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%.
It's a good thing.
Oh, I wouldn't have it any other way.
And I think it's a good way to end, maybe, to realize you're all great, funny, happy monsters. No? Don't you think? It's
I think
good.
everybody is. I think everyone is. Everyone is. a
Except
monster.
you, we see it because of your drawings. And for us, it's still inside.
Well, yeah, maybe it'll come out. I mean, I think there's no better thing to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
True. So I hope all of you will get out soon.
Amen.
Thank you very much. And before leaving a time, if there are some questions, I would like to thank heartily Emil, Lina and Gael for accepting to be here, Joanna Neves and the Drawingnow team for inviting us, because I'm very happy to be here with you all today. So thank you, Drawingnow. And thank you for being here listening to us while it's summer outside.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I just wanted to thank Rena, Gallery Martel, Joanna, the Drawingnow team. You, Simone, you've been running around forever. Kurt, you're amazing. Thank you. And thank you, Daria. And thank you for coming. I always forget to thank everyone. And I thought I want to thank you for asking me to be here. It's been wonderful. And I got to meet these women, and I'm crazy about their work. So thank you. Which is your gallery? Which gallery do you have? I gotta come and see your work. Which one? What's the number?
Semio's Gallery. I don't know, the booth 3A? 003A? I don't know.
0038?
Yeah.
Zeros. How do you get double zero?
I don't know.
Like double, like the James Bond.
Yeah.
Like
Special spy.
0038.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There is a special carpet on the
Really?
floor. Yeah.
That you go down into, and there's a special layer,
I
and there's
hope
guns.
so.
And
Mhm.
Oh, that's cool. I would love that.
Like the Jordan Peele movie.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Yes, please go to the galleries upstairs, Gallery
Yeah.
Semio's for Hippolyte Hentgen, Galerie Martel for
Thank you.
Emil Ferris, and I think Emil will be there at 5 for a signing session at the booth.
Yeah, she will. She will. I was just
So-
like kind of not. I
So
was going to fool.
please go
yeah.
upstairs afterwards.
Which one is the mine? The one Arenas? Oh,
Oh, A13.
Oh, you didn't want to send us to the booth that didn't exist. That booth, yeah. Okay, yeah. I like. Thank you for. No. Okay, good.
B5.
B5.
B5, C13.
Okay.
Are there some questions for the artists?
Maybe not a question, but I was really struck with this idea of fiction and reality, frontiers being so transparent, and so fiction being more real than an idea we have of reality, and being so close to reality. That when you were saying, and I think it's so true. I always believe that if you don't think you're living a fiction, then you are in a fake reality, and it's better to believe in these fictions as reality. I'd like to know what you had to say about this reality and fiction duality, because I think your fiction and your drawings are so true. They talk so much more about true things, and they are placed in the fiction department. And I think they should be placed in the reality department more than anything else. But
Yeah, okay. I love that. Can you please write the story of my life? I mean, that was great. That was exactly what a long time ago, a friend of mine said to me, these things never happened, but the story is true. And he said, this is a Native American saying. I don't know if it is. Everybody says it's a Native American saying, and maybe it is. But I like that, and I think it's kind of, I think there's truth to that. And, you know, I think that's the way, I mean, it's the way in a culture, you know, I'm talking as a person who is a temporary fugitive from Trump America. And how do I talk to you about fiction and truth? You know what I mean? It's like, wow, how am I going to talk to you about all that? I think we need this so bad right now. There's things we need. We need things, you know, when you were, Daria, when you were talking to me about their work, you were saying, you see their work and you imagine somebody seeing it and thinking, I can step outside of what I thought before. I have a way of doing that. It provides a path to that. That's really powerful. And I think embracing that fiction that will tell you the truth is really critically important. And people have to get away from the villager mentality. And when you accept the fact that there are no monsters, you're the monster, then you can embrace it. You can be unafraid. You don't have the shame and the fear and the guilt that keeps us embedded in a non-powerful way of living. We can be more powerful because we are so powerful. Human beings, and that's what everybody's afraid of. And I'm afraid I'll die, I'll be killed because I tell you this, you know? No, I'm not kidding, I really am. But then I'm also, you know, crazy. So anyway, the point is, we are so powerful. We are so powerful. If we knew how powerful we were, we would realize that we can change everything that's wrong right now. And nothing has to be a desperate, negative situation for our planet. We can change all of this. We really can. And a lot of it is with the power of our minds. It starts there. I know that sounds loony, but it's not. It's not. It's actually really, really the truth. I'm done. That's.
Not so much a question, but the whole time we've been talking about monsters, I've had a concept in my mind which comes from one of my favorite poets, Rilke, who said that every angel is terrifying. And there's something about the monster and the angel being two sides of the moon, two faces of the moon. And I wanted to just really appreciate and thank all of you guys. I really admire all of your work, and there's a real daring and a generosity that you guys give in your own creative process to really submit to the creative process and not necessarily dominate it, but to be carried by it. And it really takes a lot of bravery. So while we're talking about monsters, I just wanted to illuminate that with the idea of angels, and just an appreciation for giving us permission to go beyond our own limits with your work. So thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
You were talking about like the sacred feminine and like the scary earth-related power that you want to talk about, and I was wondering, is there anything that all of you guys do to connect with that, or is it something that you naturally are just drawing in this, like, I guess, force, or 'cause to me it's kind of something opposite to the mind, like are there like rituals, or is it natural, or do you like create some sort of space where you do that? Does that make any sense?
Are you talking about the inspiration? That is?
Because she was talking about like this earthly feminine like force, kind of, that like it's sometimes refers to as like the sacred feminine, you know, this, I don't know if it's clear what I'm talking about, but yeah, I guess inspiration, is it something that...
No, I think we knew that we are in the kind of power you were talking. We can represent the world by drawing, so we have the power of understanding the world by drawing it. So this is maybe the answer. Yeah.
It's a magic spell. Drawing is a spell.
Yeah.
It's I mean, the Egyptians got it, right? All their spells are, and if you look at a grimoire, you're going to see as many drawings, and they're going to be, you know, what I refer to as sacred geometry. That's why in the beginning of the book, in the beginning of the book, there's the Vesica Piscis. You know, and there's going to be more sacred. I know this is so exciting. There's going to be more sacred geometry in the second book, but it's actually going to be really sexy, super sexy. And I'm afraid of how sexy it's going to be because it could get me in a lot of trouble. But it is really where it all comes from. I mean, like everything comes from those two circles, making, you know, a hoo-ha, right? You know what I mean? I know. That's terrible, isn't it? But it does. It comes from there. Every shape is born out of this one beautiful leaf form. Hello, right? There we are. And I think about this before I start drawing. I think about it and I think, this is how, I mean, whatever line I draw for the whole day, it comes out of there. This is the source for all of it. And if I don't know, I can see it. I saw it in your work, and I commented on it. I said, are they using sacred geometry? Because you had these wonderful pieces that had these mandala-type shapes that were radiating off them, almost like in a machine, or they're kind of like a Leger, but it had that machine quality to it, but that was all drawn on the golden mean. You were doing it in a perfect way. And so maybe it's intuitive to you that you did it that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was talking about geometry, but
exactly.
This is the base of the drawing.
It's the base of everything.
And also talking about cartoon, when you see the old method for the cartoonist, everything is built with circle, and you have the skeleton, which means that there is a first step before drawing the old monster, even if it's Mickey, but every monster is built by geometry.
I love that, and it's very powerful. Yeah, I mean, if you know the eye in Egypt, the eye that has this kind of line that comes like this. Well, if you cross-sect the human head, what you'll see is that the pineal gland actually has that same shape. And so what does the pineal gland control? Spirituality. It controls spirituality. It is where the center, it's this chakra that helps you be a spiritual being in the world. So the Egyptians have created this very perfect geometric symbol that tells us, it's a clue, it's a spell. It says, this is your spirituality. This is how you can understand it. And it's an eye, inner eye, third eye. Very interesting stuff. But it's all connected, yeah, definitely. There you go. You're very welcome.
I think we're done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.